Imagine this. You drag yourself through another 10 or 12-hour day, switching tasks, answering messages, jumping between tabs, and when you finally lie down at night, the honest thought that hits is, I was busy all day, but I didn't really move. That is not your fault. It is your brain screaming that the way you are working is biologically wrong. As a neurologist would say, you are forcing a precision instrument to behave like a cheap multi-tool and then blaming yourself when it jams. What if instead of stretching your brain thin for 10 hours, you could compress your best thinking, your clearest decisions, and your most valuable creations into just 4 intense hours, and watch your results explode while your stress drops? Most people will never do this, not because they cannot, but because they were trained to worship being available instead of protecting their real work. The truth is brutal and liberating at the same time. Your brain is not rewarded by the number of hours you sit at a desk. It is rewarded by the quality and depth of the problems you give it to solve. In this video, you will see your entire workday through a different lens. You will understand why your brain loves focus and hates constant switching, why you feel mentally exhausted without having anything concrete to show, and how a simple, structured 4-hour system can turn you into the most reliable, productive version of yourself. This is not about hacks, it is about aligning your daily routine with how attention, motivation, and memory actually work. Once you experience one real 4-hour deep workday, you will never look at traditional hustle the same way again. Now let's start by exposing the real enemy that is silently killing your progress every day. The hidden cost of fake work. Right now, the main reason you end most days feeling drained and unsatisfied is not that you are lazy or incapable. It is that your brain is being pulled in 20 different directions at once. You wake up, open your phone, your nervous system is already in alert mode, and from that moment on, your day turns into a sequence of small, disconnected tasks that never let your mind truly arrive anywhere. Every notification, every quick reply, every just a minute becomes a micro-interruption that forces your brain to reset its focus. Neurologically, this is expensive. Each switch burns mental energy and erodes your ability to go deep. By the middle of the day, you are tired, but not because you did too much, rather because you never did one thing long enough. This is the essence of fake work. It looks like effort from the outside, but when you are brutally honest, it does not move the needle in anything that really matters to you. Answering messages the second they arrive, saying yes to meetings with no clear purpose, organizing and reorganizing your to-do list instead of attacking the most important item, constantly checking metrics without making decisions based on them, all of this creates a comforting illusion of productivity. Your brain loves it because each small task gives a quick sense of completion, a tiny hit of reward. The problem is that these hits never add up to something meaningful. You are feeding your brain snacks all day and wondering why you never feel the satisfaction of a real meal. From a neurological point of view, fake work locks you into a shallow loop. Your attention networks get trained to expect constant novelty. Your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for planning, deep thinking, and self-control, is overloaded with micro-decisions that do not matter, and your stress system stays mildly activated for hours. That is why at night your mind feels noisy and restless, even if you did not do anything truly demanding. You have spent the entire day in a state of cognitive limbo, not relaxed enough to recover, not focused enough to create. You start to believe that this fog is your normal state, and that real focus is something rare that only happens on perfect days. There is also a hidden emotional cost. Every time you stay busy with low-impact tasks, a part of you knows you are avoiding the deeper, scarier work that could change your reality. Writing that proposal, studying that topic, recording that video, building that product, making that difficult decision. By postponing these things behind a wall of shallow activity, you send yourself a subtle message. I do not trust myself with what really matters. Over time, this erodes your self-respect and your confidence. You start doubting your capacity, when in fact what is broken is the architecture of your day, not your intelligence. Seeing this clearly is uncomfortable, but it is also your turning point. The moment you decide to call fake work by its name, it loses part of its power. You start asking different questions. Does this actually move an important outcome, or am I just trying to feel busy? And if I could only get one thing done today, what would make me proud tonight? When you shift from measuring your day by how exhausted you are to measuring it by the depth of one or two key results, everything changes. Your brain stops chasing surface-level closure and starts craving meaningful progress. From here on, the goal is not to squeeze more tasks into your day. It is to free space for real work to happen. You will learn to use your brain the way it was designed to operate, with protected, intense, limited bursts of focus that create disproportionate results. Once you understand that your true limitation is not time but quality of attention, the idea of getting more done in 4 hours than in 4 days stops sounding like a motivational phrase and starts feeling like the logical next step. And to take that step, you first need to know when your brain is naturally at its best. Your brain's natural 4-hour power zone. If you pay attention to your own life, you will notice something interesting. There are certain hours of the day when everything feels lighter, faster, and clearer. Ideas connect more easily. Decisions come with less friction, and what would normally take you 2 or 3 hours suddenly fits into 1. That is not luck or being in the mood. It is your brain's natural power zone showing up. Your attention, motivation, and energy are not flat across the day. They follow biological rhythms. When you ignore these rhythms and force yourself to push hard at the wrong times, work feels heavier than it needs to be. When you align with them, those same tasks start to feel surprisingly fluid. From a neurological point of view, your brain has a limited daily capacity for deep, high-quality thinking. It is like a battery that only holds a certain amount of true focus, and trying to stretch it across 12 hours of shallow, interrupted work does not increase the charge, it just spreads it thinner. Most people waste their peak hours on things that do not require their best self at all. Checking messages, sitting in unfocused meetings, scrolling, reacting. Then, when they finally try to do something that genuinely matters, that battery is already half empty. The result is slow thinking, resistance, procrastination, and the feeling that important tasks are too hard. The turning point is to identify and protect your own 4-hour power zone as if it were an appointment with the most important person in your life. For some people, it is early morning, when the world is quiet and the prefrontal cortex is fresh. For others, it is late morning or early afternoon, once the brain has fully warmed up. The exact time is less important than the fact that you consciously choose it, test it, and then guard it. You can notice it by asking, at what time do I normally feel most clear, most creative, most capable of doing something that requires real thinking instead of autopilot? Once you spot that window, you stop filling it with low-value tasks and start dedicating it to the work that defines your future. This is where the leap happens. Instead of seeing your day as a long, exhausting stretch of, I should be productive all the time, you start seeing it as a game of protecting 4 golden hours. Inside those hours, you work on what truly matters. Outside of them, you handle the rest of life. Admin, messages, logistics, lighter tasks. The moment you make this separation, your nervous system relaxes because your brain finally knows when it is expected to perform at its peak and when it is allowed to cruise. You are no longer trying to be at a level 10 of focus for 12 hours straight. You are aiming for level 10 for 4 hours, and that changes everything. You will notice that when you consistently respect this power zone, your brain starts to anticipate it. A few minutes before your protected block, you begin to feel more alert. Ideas that were fuzzy become sharper. It is like training a muscle. The more you use your deep focus during that same period, the more your brain learns, this is when we do important things. Over time, this routine becomes self-reinforcing. Instead of waiting for motivation, you create a predictable context where deep work naturally appears. And once those 4 hours are in place, the next step is to decide exactly what deserves to live inside them. The single outcome day principle. Most people wake up and throw their brain into a storm of competing priorities. You look at a long to-do list, a full inbox, a calendar with random meetings, and your mind starts negotiating with itself. What should I do first? What is most urgent? What feels easiest? That mental debate already burns precious energy before you have even started. From the brain's perspective, every open loop is a small weight it needs to carry. When you face 10, 15, 20 different tasks with no clear hierarchy, Your attention is pulled in multiple directions at once, and nothing feels truly safe to ignore. That is the perfect recipe for anxiety, procrastination, and half-finished work. The single outcome day principle cuts through that noise with surgical precision. Instead of asking, how much can I get done today, you ask just one question. If I could only accomplish one meaningful outcome in my 4-hour power zone, what would actually move my life or my career forward? Not a task, not a vague intention, but a concrete, visible result. Finishing the first draft of a script, closing a specific deal, designing a full outline, recording and uploading a video, building a prototype, studying and summarizing one complex chapter. When your brain has a single non-negotiable target, something interesting happens. Your decisions, your energy, and your focus start to align around that target almost automatically. Neurologically, this works because the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and decision-making, loves clarity. Ambiguity forces it to constantly evaluate options. Clarity lets it build a straight path. When you define one main outcome for the day, you reduce decision fatigue. Every small choice becomes easier. Do I open my inbox now or work on the outcome? Do I say yes to this meeting or protect my 4 hours? Does this new idea help the outcome or distract from it? Your brain no longer needs to improvise an answer each time because the priority is already set. You have given your mind a simple rule. If it helps the outcome, it stays. If it does not, it waits. Living by a single outcome does not mean you will only do one thing all day. It means that inside your 4-hour power zone, everything else becomes secondary. Those hours are a tunnel, and the outcome is at the end of it. You might still answer a quick message, adjust something small, or take a short break, but you always come back to that one result. This creates a sense of narrative. Your day is no longer a collection of random scenes. It is a story moving toward a clear ending. At night, when you look back, you do not ask, was I busy? You ask, did I hit my outcome? And the answer is either yes or no. That brutal honesty is what starts to rebuild your confidence. There is also a deep motivational shift here. When you complete one meaningful outcome each day, even if it is not perfect, you start to feel a growing sense of momentum. Projects that once felt impossible become a chain of clear, daily wins. Your brain starts associating your 4-hour block with progress and completion instead of frustration and confusion. That emotional association is powerful. It reduces resistance the next day because you are no longer sitting down to work in the abstract. You are sitting down to finish today's chapter of a bigger goal. One outcome at a time, day after day, you create results that most people only dream of, even though they are busy all week. From now on, before your deep work window starts, you decide, what is today's single outcome? Once you have that answer, your day stops being a fight against distraction and becomes a mission. And to protect that mission, the next step is to reshape the environment where your brain will operate so that focus becomes the easiest choice you can make. Designing a distraction-proof work ecosystem. If your brain is the engine, your environment is the road. It does not matter how powerful the engine is if the road is full of potholes, random obstacles, and constant detours. Most people try to solve their focus problem with more willpower, when in reality, their surroundings are silently sabotaging them. You sit down to work with your phone face up, open inbox, social media one tab away, notifications pinging from every device, and people walking in and out as if your attention were an open door. In a setup like this, getting deeply focused is not just hard, it is biologically unnatural. Your brain is wired to respond to novelty and threat, so every ping, every movement, every new window steals a piece of your focus before you even notice. Designing a distraction-proof ecosystem means you stop treating focus as a mood and start treating it as architecture. Imagine creating a small laboratory for your 4-hour power zone, a place where everything in sight tells your brain, here we do deep work. That starts with the physical space. Ideally, you choose a desk, a corner, even a simple table that is dedicated to your most important work. When you sit there, you are not allowed to scroll, binge content, or handle random admin. You are there to execute the single outcome you defined. Over time, Just being in that spot becomes a cue for your nervous system. Your posture changes, your breathing calms, your mind sharpens because it has learned what this place is for. Then comes the digital environment, which for most people is the biggest enemy of focus. In a distraction-proof ecosystem, you do not rely on "I will not open that app." You make it physically and mentally harder to do so. During your 4-hour block, you close all unnecessary tabs, log out of platforms that are not essential to your outcome, and ideally use a separate browser or profile dedicated only to deep work. You silence notifications, activate focus modes, or use blockers that literally prevent you from accessing your standard distraction sites. The goal is simple. If you get the impulse to escape the discomfort of thinking by checking something, the path to do that feels long and annoying, while the path back to your work feels short and frictionless. Socially, you also redesign how accessible you are. If everyone around you is used to instant replies, your brain will always stay half available, waiting for the next interruption. To protect your ecosystem, you communicate clear rules. During these specific hours, you are not reachable unless it is a true emergency. You can tell your family, your team, or your clients that you will check messages before and after your deep work window, and then you prove that you respect that boundary. The first few days might feel uncomfortable. You might worry about what others will think, but you will notice that the world does not collapse, and your respect for your own time increases dramatically. In a well-designed ecosystem, you do not have to constantly fight yourself. The room, the tools, the devices, and the people around you are aligned with your intention. When you sit down, there are fewer decisions to make, fewer temptations to resist. Your brain can use its resources where they matter, solving problems, creating, deciding, learning. And the difference is visible. You will feel how the quality of your thoughts changes when you are not being pulled by 100 small hooks. Once your environment starts working with you instead of against you, your 4-hour power zone becomes a predictable, stable platform. On top of that platform, you can now add something that tells your brain, in a clear and unmistakable way, that the deep work session is about to begin. The 10-minute pre-work reset. Even in a perfect environment, your brain does not jump from scattered to laser-focused in 1 second. It needs a bridge, a short transition that tells your nervous system, "We are leaving the noise and entering a different mode now." That is what the 10-minute pre-work reset does. Think of it as the ignition ritual for your 4-hour power zone. Skipping it is like starting a race with your shoelaces untied. You might still move, but you are one step away from tripping over your own thoughts. With this reset, you clear the mental clutter, calm your system, and give your brain one clear command. This is important. Pay attention. The first part of this reset is physical. Your brain is not floating in a vacuum, it is inside a body, and that body sends constant signals that affect your focus. So before you dive into deep work, you stand up, move, stretch, breathe. 2 or 3 minutes are enough. Walk a bit, roll your shoulders, take a few slow deep breaths, exhaling longer than you inhale. This simple pattern tells your nervous system that you are safe, which reduces background anxiety. When your body relaxes even slightly, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus and planning, gains more access to energy. You are no longer starting your session in a subtle fight-or-flight state. Then, you move to a quick mental declutter. You take a piece of paper and write down everything that is trying to occupy your mind. Tasks you need to remember, messages you have to answer later, small problems, random thoughts, worries. You do not organize, you do not judge, you just empty. This is not a to-do list, it is a brain dump. The goal is to stop using your working memory as storage. When thoughts are on paper, your brain trusts that it does not need to keep rehearsing them in the background. It is like closing unnecessary apps on a computer before opening a heavy program. Suddenly, there is more space for the work that actually matters. Now comes the focusing move. You look at your single outcome for the day, and you translate it into a clear, short intention for this session. One sentence, spoken or written: "In this block, my only job is to do X." Not, "I will try to make progress," but "I will complete this specific piece." This might sound almost childish, but neurologically you are giving your brain a filter. During the session, whenever a distraction appears, you can compare it against that intention. Does this help my one job or not? The more precise the intention, the easier it is for your mind to ignore what does not fit. It is the difference between entering a room thinking, I might do something productive, and entering knowing, I am here to write the introduction of this video. Finally, you do a quick reality check of your tools. Do you have everything you need open and ready for the first step of your outcome? Text editor, notes, files, references. Do you have water nearby so you do not get up every 10 minutes? Do you have your phone out of sight or in another room? These tiny adjustments remove excuses before they arise. When you start, there is no friction. No, I just need to grab this one thing. No reason to wander around. You sit. You see your intention. Your brain is calmer, your tools are in place, and the path of least resistance is to begin. When you repeat this 10-minute reset before each deep work window, your brain starts to associate the ritual with the state that follows. Over time, just picking up the paper for the brain dump or speaking your intention can trigger a shift in your physiology and attention. It becomes a psychological switch. You are no longer hoping that focus will magically appear. You are commanding your system into it step by step. And once you have entered this state, the way you actually move through your work inside those 4 hours becomes the next decisive factor. That is where monotasking, used correctly, turns into your most powerful ally. The monotask momentum method. Your brain was not built to juggle 5 important things at once. It was built to go deep into one thing, then come up for air, then dive again. Every time you try to multitask with real work, you are not actually doing tasks in parallel. You are forcing your mind to switch rapidly between them. That switch has a cost. It breaks your train of thought. It makes you lose the thread of what you are doing. And it forces your brain to reload the context every time you return. This is why you can stare at a document for 20 minutes and feel like you are pushing through mud. You're not slow, you are fragmented. Monotasking is not about doing less. It is about stopping the constant self-interruption long enough for your brain to reach its full depth. Inside your 4-hour power zone, the monotask momentum method is simple. One task, one focus, one sequence. You take your single outcome and break it down into a clear first move. Not 10 steps, just the next concrete action that moves the outcome forward. If your goal is to write a script, the first move might be to write the messy outline. If your goal is to design a presentation, the first move might be to define the 3 core ideas. Once you choose that move, you treat it like a tunnel. For the next stretch of time, you are only allowed to walk inside that tunnel. No checking messages, no reorganizing your drive, no polishing something unrelated. Your attention is a spotlight, and you point it at one thing until that thing is complete or reaches a natural stopping point. Here is what happens neurologically when you do this. At the beginning of a focused block, your brain is still resisting a little. It wants to escape to something easier and more immediately rewarding. But as you keep your attention on one task, your mind starts building momentum. Each sentence written, each slide completed, each decision made sends a signal. We are moving. That sense of progress releases its own motivation chemicals, which then make it easier to continue. After a while, you enter what feels like a groove, where ideas flow more freely and distraction loses its grip. This is not magic. It is the natural result of keeping your attention stable long enough for your brain to fully engage with the problem in front of you. Monotasking also protects your confidence. When you jump between tasks all day, you rarely get the satisfaction of finishing something substantial. Everything stays half done, half thought, half closed. That leaves you with a constant feeling of, I did a lot, but nothing is really done. When you monotask, you start and finish clear slices of work. You can see the before and after. At the end of a block, you can point to something and say, this exists now because I focused. That visible progress is fuel. It builds a quiet trust in yourself. If I sit down and give my full attention to one thing, I can move mountains with time. Of course, your brain will still try to pull you away. Thoughts will pop up. You will remember an email. You will feel the urge to just check something. The way you handle these impulses is part of the method. Instead of obeying them, you quickly write them down on a side note and return to your main task. This way, you honor the thought without letting it hijack your session. Every time you do this, you are training your attention muscle. You are teaching your brain that not every impulse deserves action. Over days and weeks, your capacity to stay with one thing grows noticeably. Once you experience a few truly monotasked blocks, you understand why working this way is the key to getting more done in 4 hours than most people manage in 4 distracted days. You extract the full value from each minute instead of leaking focus everywhere. And as your ability to stay with one task rises, another shift becomes possible. You stop counting hours and start measuring your day by what you actually produced. That is where turning time blocks into output blocks changes the entire way you think about productivity. Turning time blocks into output blocks. One of the biggest traps in productivity is judging your day by how many hours you worked instead of by what actually changed because of those hours. You can sit in front of a screen for 8, 10, 12 hours and still end the day with the same important projects stuck in the same place. Your brain does not get rewarded by time served, it gets rewarded by progress made. When you only think in terms of time blocks, you start to believe that being present is enough. When you shift to output blocks, your entire relationship with work changes. You stop asking, "How long did I sit here?" and start asking, "What exists now that did not exist this morning?" An output block is a slice of time that is defined by a tangible result, not by a clock. In your 4-hour power zone, instead of saying, "I will work on this for an hour," you say, "In this block I will write the first draft of the introduction," or "I will design 3 key slides," or "I will outline the full structure of this video." The time is there to serve the outcome, not the other way around. This small shift has a powerful psychological effect. Your brain now sees a finish line. There is a clear moment when you can say, "Done." If I see that clarity pulls you forward and makes you less vulnerable to distraction, because stopping early is no longer just a loss of minutes, it is leaving a result incomplete. From a neurological perspective, your motivation systems are highly sensitive to visible wins. When you complete an output, even a small one, your brain registers that as success and releases reward signals that make it more likely you will want to keep going. That is why finishing a full page, exporting a video, or crossing out a concrete deliverable feels so satisfying. When your day is structured around outputs, you are intentionally stacking these wins. The more you stack, the more your brain starts to associate your deep work blocks with a sense of accomplishment instead of frustration. That emotional association makes it easier to sit down the next day, because your body remembers, "When I do this, I feel good afterward." There is also a sharpening effect on your thinking. When you decide that a block will end with a specific output, you naturally start planning your effort differently. You break the work into smaller internal steps, you prioritize what matters for that result, and you cut away anything that does not directly help. This eliminates a lot of fake productivity, polishing tiny details that do not matter yet, over-researching to avoid starting, rearranging files to feel busy. Under the lens of output, those behaviors lose their appeal because they do not bring you closer to the concrete thing you promised yourself. Your brain becomes more strategic almost by necessity. Over time, as you stack days of clear outputs, you build a track record you can see. Scripts finished, pages written, modules recorded, features built, clients closed. Your calendar stops being a memorial of hours and becomes a map of creations. This reinforces a new identity. You are not just someone who works hard. You are someone who consistently turns attention into artifacts that matter. That identity is crucial because it gives you confidence to choose and commit to bigger and bolder outputs. You trust that if you carve out the 4 hours and define the result, you can make it real. When you live in output blocks, the idea of getting more done in 4 hours than others do in 4 days stops being abstract. Most people spend their days keeping plates spinning without ever truly finishing anything important. You, on the other hand, are closing loops day after day. And to sustain that level of intensity without burning out, there is one more element you need to master inside those 4 hours: how to rest in a way that actually refuels your focus instead of diluting it. That is where micro-recovery becomes your hidden advantage. Micro-recovery for maximum focus. Your brain is not a machine that can run at full power for 4 hours straight without a drop in performance. It is more like a muscle that needs tension and release, effort and recovery. The mistake most people make is swinging between two extremes. Either they grind non-stop until their focus collapses, or they take breaks that completely derail their attention, like diving into social media, news, or endless messages. Both options destroy the quality of the 4-hour block. Micro-recovery is the middle path. It is the art of resting in a way that refuels your focus instead of scattering it, so you can chain several strong waves of deep work in a single session. Inside your 4-hour power zone, think of your work as a series of intense sprints separated by short, intentional pauses. During the sprint, you are fully immersed in one output, with no self-interruption. As you start to feel your attention fade, your eyes getting heavy, your thoughts slowing down or wandering more, instead of forcing yourself to push through mindlessly or escaping into your phone, you step into a micro-recovery. This is not a reward for having worked hard. It is part of the system. It is like taking a breath between repetitions at the gym so you can lift with proper form again. The goal is to reset your attention, not to entertain yourself. A good micro-recovery is simple and low stimulation. You stand up, move your body a little, stretch your neck and shoulders, maybe walk to another room and back. You let your gaze rest on something far away to relax your eye muscles, especially if you have been staring at a screen. You can drink some water, take a few slow, deep breaths, or just sit in silence for a minute. The key is that you are not feeding your brain new information. No feeds, no inbox, no news. You are giving your attention systems a brief moment of idle, like putting a car in neutral for a few seconds before shifting gears again. Paradoxically, this kind of boring break is what leaves you feeling fresher when you return. From a neurological angle, these tiny pauses give your brain time to integrate what you have just done. While you are walking or breathing, networks that were heavily engaged during the work block can downshift, and other networks responsible for creativity and insight can quietly make new connections. That is why sometimes the best ideas for the next paragraph, the missing phrase, or the solution to a problem show up right when you step away for a minute. You did not lose time. You allowed your brain to process. When you come back, you are not starting from zero again. You are picking up the thread with renewed clarity. There is also a psychological benefit. Planning micro-recoveries in advance removes the guilt and anxiety around needing a break. You are no longer failing at focus when you pause. You are following the protocol. This reduces the inner conflict of "I should keep pushing" versus "I cannot think anymore." Instead, you work with a calm intensity, knowing that a short reset is coming. Over a full 4-hour block, this rhythm keeps your focus sharp for much longer than if you had tried to power through without stopping. You finish the session feeling used, in a good way, but not mentally destroyed. When you combine deep monotasking, clear outputs, and smart micro-recovery, your 4-hour block becomes a powerful engine. But to make sure this engine keeps getting stronger day after day, you need a way to close each session in a way that sets up your future self for an even better performance. That is where the future self handoff ritual turns your daily deep work into a continuous upward spiral instead of isolated efforts. The future self handoff ritual. Most people treat the end of a work session like falling off a cliff. One moment they are in the middle of a complex task. The next they suddenly stop, close everything, rush to the next commitment, and hope that tomorrow they will magically remember where they left off. Neurologically, this is a disaster. Your brain hates unfinished loops. When you do not close them properly, they keep occupying mental space in the background, creating a low-level tension that follows you through the evening and into the next day. Then, when you sit down again, you waste a big part of your fresh focus just trying to reconstruct what you were thinking before. The future self. Handoff ritual is a simple way to break this pattern. Instead of dropping the work, you pass the baton to the next version of you. Think of your future self as a teammate who sits down tomorrow in front of the same project. That person will either arrive to a mess of vague memories or to a clear starting line. The difference is decided in the last 5 to 10 minutes of today's 4-hour block. The ritual starts by capturing exactly what you did. You take a moment to write a short, honest summary. What you worked on, what you finished, what decisions you made, what is still open. This is not about perfection, it is about giving your future self context. When you put it into words, you are freezing the mental state you are in right now while everything is still fresh. Tomorrow, reading this will instantly reconnect you to the logic of your previous session. Then you define the next tiny step. Not a huge plan, not 10 new tasks, just the very first concrete action your future self should take when they sit down. It might be, write the example for section 2, rework the hook of the introduction, review the first half of the script out loud. The point is that there is no ambiguity. When tomorrow arrives, you do not have to think, negotiate, or psych yourself up. You can bypass that early resistance by simply following the instruction you left. This reduces the friction of starting, which is usually the hardest part. Psychologically, you are turning, I need to work on this big thing, into, I just need to do this one small move. The third part of the handoff is reflection. You ask yourself quickly and honestly, what made focus easier today and what tried to pull me out of deep work? You might notice patterns, certain times when you wanted to check your phone, specific worries that kept returning, parts of the environment that distracted you, or techniques that helped you stay in the zone. You write down one thing you want to keep and one thing you want to adjust tomorrow. This turns each day into a tiny experiment. You're not only producing results, you are learning how your brain works and refining your system around it. Over time, these adjustments compound into a highly personalized, effective routine. Finally, you create a clean emotional exit. Instead of leaving your desk in a state of not enough, you consciously acknowledge that the session is over and that within those 4 hours, you did your part. You can say it out loud or simply think it. This is where I stop today. The rest is for tomorrow's version of me. This might sound small, but it sends a powerful message to your nervous system. Work has a clear boundary. When you step away, you allow your brain to truly rest because it knows there is a plan for picking things up again. Your evening stops being haunted by half-remembered tasks and becomes real recovery, which then refuels your next deep work window. With this ritual in place, your days stop feeling like disconnected sprints and start feeling like a continuous relay race where each self supports the next. You wake up not to a mountain of vague obligations, but to a precise starting point that a past version of you prepared with care. That sense of being supported by your own system is incredibly motivating. And once you start protecting your inner rhythm like this, the next challenge appears: how to protect these 4 golden hours from the constant demands and urgencies of other people without becoming a hermit or burning bridges. Protecting your 4 hours from other people. You can design the perfect system, know your power zone, have your ritual and your outputs, and still watch your 4 golden hours collapse if you leave one door open: other people's urgencies. Most of what destroys deep work does not come from you, it comes from outside. A message that will only take a second, a meeting invite dropped into your calendar, a call, a knock on the door, a quick favor that stretches into half an hour. If you do not consciously protect your focus window, the world will assume it is available. From a brain perspective, each interruption is not just a few minutes lost. It can take long minutes for your mind to rebuild the level of depth it had before. When this happens over and over, your 4-hour block dissolves into fragments. Protecting your 4 hours is not about becoming rude or unreachable. It is about treating that time as if it were a non-negotiable appointment with your future. Think of it this way. If you had a medical exam or an important client call, you would not casually pause it to answer random messages. You would tell people you are unavailable. Your deep work deserves the same level of respect. The first step is to make your protected window visible and predictable. You block it on your calendar, even if you work alone. You decide in advance, during these hours, I am not reactive, I am creating. Then you communicate that boundary clearly to the people who tend to interrupt you. You can say, from 9 to 1, I am in focus time. I will see messages and calls after that. When you say it with calm firmness, most people adapt faster than you expect. Of course, saying it is one thing, enforcing it is another. The real protection comes from changing your default behavior. Before your deep work window starts, you close communication channels that invite interruption. You mute chats, you set your phone on Do Not Disturb or leave it in another room. You sign out of email. You mark your status as focused if you use team tools. If you are in a house with other people, you create a simple signal. When the door is closed, you are not to be interrupted unless it is serious. You might feel guilty at first, as if you are being selfish, but what you are actually doing is choosing a few hours of intentional unavailability so you can show up with more presence and clarity for the rest of the day. There will be resistance, both external and internal. Some people around you are so used to instant access that any delay feels strange at first. Your own brain is also addicted to being on call and may invent reasons to check in. That is normal. The key is to stay consistent long enough for a new pattern to form. When others see that you always respond after your deep work window, not during it, they learn to trust the rhythm. When your own nervous system realizes that nothing explodes while you are offline, the anxiety of disconnecting starts to fade. Over time, this boundary stops feeling like a fight and becomes your new normal. The reward for this protection is huge. Inside those 4 hours, your mind is finally allowed to sink fully into the work without scanning the horizon for the next ping. You experience what it means to be truly absorbed in a problem or a creation without the constant background noise of, "What if someone needs me right now?" Ironically, by limiting your availability during a specific window, you become more reliable and effective outside of it. You answer messages with a clearer head, you join meetings with real input to offer, you handle emergencies with more capacity because your brain is not exhausted by hundreds of tiny disruptions. When you start living like this, you realize that protecting your time is also protecting your identity. You are no longer just the person everyone can reach at any moment. You are the person who is known for doing deep, valuable work. That identity shift is what the next step is all about, because no tactic or schedule will last if, deep down, you still see yourself as someone who only wins by grinding more hours instead of by using your brain with precision. Identity shift, becoming a 4-hour high performer. There comes a point where techniques are not enough. You can block your time, protect your focus, design your environment, and still feel like you are pretending to be productive if deep down you still see yourself as someone who only gets results by working more and suffering more. Real, lasting change happens when your identity shifts. You stop thinking, "I am trying this new method," and start thinking, "I am the kind of person who produces high-level results in a few focused hours." This is not a motivational slogan. It is a neurological reality. Your brain constantly aligns your behavior with what you believe about yourself. If you believe you are chaotic and inconsistent, you will unconsciously sabotage systems that prove the opposite. If you believe you are precise and intentional, your mind will look for ways to confirm that. Becoming a 4-hour high performer means rewriting the story you tell yourself about how success works. Most of us were trained on the myth that value is measured in exhaustion. The more tired you are, the more you deserve what you have. So when work starts feeling lighter, when you produce more in less time, a strange guilt appears. Your brain whispers, "This cannot be right, I should be suffering more." That belief pulls you back into old patterns, saying yes to extra work you do not need, stretching your day unnecessarily, filling every quiet moment with noise. To break this, you consciously adopt a new standard: effectiveness over sacrifice. You begin to take pride not in being the most exhausted person in the room, but in being the one who moves the needle with the least wasted effort. This identity shift shows up in small, concrete choices. A 4-hour high performer does not brag about pulling all-nighters. They brag, quietly, about hitting their outcome and still having energy for life. They do not chase every opportunity. They choose the few that align with their deepest goals, because they know their attention is precious. They are not addicted to looking busy. They are addicted to seeing real progress. When a new demand comes in, their first instinct is not, "How can I squeeze this in?" but "Does this deserve space in my limited peak hours?" That question alone separates them from the majority. It is a filter that protects their best brain time from being sold cheaply. On a neurological level, this new identity also calms your nervous system. When you trust that 4 focused hours are enough to move your most important projects forward, the constant background panic of, "I should always be doing more," starts to fade. You allow yourself to rest outside those hours without the poison of guilt. Your evenings, your weekends, your moments of doing nothing stop feeling like stolen time and start feeling like part of the performance cycle that keeps your brain sharp. Ironically, this makes you even more effective, because a rested brain learns faster, solves problems better, and resists distraction more easily. You are no longer running on stress hormones, you are running on clarity. Each day you follow this system, you are casting a vote for this new identity. Every time you protect your 4 hours, every time you complete a meaningful outcome, every time you choose depth over noise, you are telling your brain, this is who we are now. At first it might feel fragile, like a costume you're trying on. With repetition, it becomes natural. People around you start to notice. They come to you not just because you are available, but because you deliver. That feedback loop reinforces the shift. Step by step, you stop measuring your worth by how long you stay online and start measuring it by the quality of the results you bring into the world. And once you truly inhabit this identity, the idea of what is possible in a few years of consistent 4-hour days becomes much bigger than you think right now. The 4-hour day, 4-year transformation. Take a moment and project yourself 4 years into the future. Not 4 days, not 4 weeks, 4 solid years of life. Now imagine that on almost every one of those days, you protected a 4-hour block of deep, brain-optimized work the way you have learned here. No more fake work filling your best hours, no more energy scattered across 100 tiny urgencies. Just one focused outcome after another, day after day. The math alone is insane. 4 years of consistent 4-hour days is the equivalent of thousands of hours of your absolute best thinking, your clearest creativity, your most courageous decisions, concentrated instead of diluted. That amount of focused time can rewrite a career, build a business, master a complex skill, or completely reposition you in your field. From a neurological perspective, those years are not just about extra output, they are about the brain you become in the process. Every deep work block strengthens the networks responsible for focus, problem-solving, and self-control. You literally train your attention like a muscle. What feels hard in the first month becomes natural in the 6th and powerful in the 20th. Projects that once terrified you become just another outcome. Situations that would have drowned you in anxiety become challenges you know how to approach systematically. Your tolerance for boredom increases, your resistance to distraction grows, and your capacity to stay with difficult tasks expands. You are not just getting more done, you are evolving how your mind operates under pressure. The external changes are just as real. 4 years of single outcome days means dozens, maybe hundreds, of completed scripts, products, campaigns, offers, systems, relationships, and opportunities that most people never get around to. Instead of living in a fog of someday I will, you will be surrounded by tangible evidence of your effort, a body of work, a track record. People will start to describe you differently: reliable, sharp, creative, fast, calm. Doors that stay closed for the permanently busy begin to open for someone who consistently delivers. And because you are no longer sacrificing your entire life on the altar of work, you have energy left to enjoy what you are building. Better health, deeper relationships, more freedom in how you use the rest of your time. The most important part is this: none of it depends on being a genius or having perfect conditions. It depends on a decision that you can make starting today. The decision to stop worshipping long, unfocused days and to start honoring 4 sacred hours of full presence. The decision to design your environment for depth, to reset your mind before you start, to move one outcome at a time, to rest intelligently, to support your future self, to set boundaries with others, and to upgrade who you believe you are. If you treat this not as a temporary challenge but as a new way of living, 4 years from now, you will look back at this moment as the point where everything quietly turned. Not because you did more, but because you finally learned to use your brain the way it was meant to be used.